everyone, welcome back to CJ Explores. I'm Charlotte and I travelled the world with my husband Corey, and we have just finished an epic Interrail trip. We travelled for 2 months with the Global Pass from London all the way to the Greek islands. And in this video, we're going to share everything we learned, all the things that we wish we knew before we did our trip, and this is going to be your go-to guide for Interrail. The first question you're going to want to ask is Interrail a trip for me? There's a big misconception that Interrail is only for budget travellers, gap years, like backpackers, and that is a complete myth. An Interrail trip is actually valid for all ages, from children up to senior citizens, so anybody can do this trip. If you like once in a lifetime adventures, if you like seeing the scenic route, if you like seeing multiple countries in one trip, tick tick tick, then obviously this is the trip for you. And also, I know that I'm saying Interrail, but actually this also is linked with the EU Rail Pass. Interrail and EU Rail is the same thing, it's just different name depending on your citizenship. So if you're a citizen of Europe, and that still includes UK after Brexit, then you get the Interrail Pass, but if you're from America, then you would get the EU Rail Pass. For example, Corey, he is from New Zealand, so he has a New Zealand passport, he got the EU Rail Pass. I'm from the UK, so I got the Interrail Pass. Exactly the same thing, exactly the same prices, everything was completely the same, but we just obviously had EU Rail and Interrail. Once you've decided that you like to go on an Interrail trip, then you need to think about what type of pass suits you. There's multiple passes to choose from, and you can see them all on the Interrail site. Now, the different types of passes depend on 3 things: your age, the length of trip, and how many travel days you'd like in that trip. So for example, if you fall into the youth or the senior category, then you'll get discounts, which is great. The adult price is kind of always fixed. However, if you keep an eye on the Interrail social media channels throughout the year, you'll see that sometimes there's some discounts. Keep an eye out during the beginning of the year and building up to summer, because that is when all the promotion and the discounts start to appear. Now, the type of trip obviously depends on what pass you'd like to buy. Now, say you have just 1 to 2 weeks for a little holiday around Europe and go for those smaller packages. You can even just do 1 country pass. So say you just really want to explore 1 country, for example Italy, you buy a 1 country pass for Italy and you can just explore and use a train travel all around Italy and see everything you want to. However, say you have 2 to 3 months and you want to do a really epic adventure around Europe, see as much as you can, then go for those 2 to 3 month passes with multiple travel days. We did 2 months with 15 days of travel, and that was great for us. We found 15 days was more than enough. However, you can get much more. You can get, I think, even every single day as a travel day. And it's worth noting that a travel day does not mean just 1 train. That means a whole day of travel. So in the morning you can take a train, stop somewhere for lunch, and then afternoon carry on. So you can really travel vast distances using those travel days, and if you plan your route well, you can travel far. Once you've decided what type of pass you'd like to get, then you need to decide when you're going to go. What's really handy is that you don't have to activate your pass straight away. When you buy it, you get a time frame to activate it within. It's usually 1 year. So say you buy beginning of the year and you want to go a trip in summer, you can wait a little bit before you activate to make sure you know exactly what dates you're going. You want to book in your accommodation and you'll maybe reserve some seats on the trains. For example, we purchased our pass a couple months in advance, and when it came to the early summer, we activated it a couple weeks before, when you knew exactly what date we were leaving and what train we were getting on out of the UK. Which was the Eurostar, because the Eurostar is included in the Interrail Pass. You get a really nice discount, so that's a good tip. They also have loads of route recommendations on there too, so if you're a bit like, I don't know where I want to go, I just want to go to Europe, then have a look at their recommendations. You might find something on there that's suited for you. Now that you've purchased your pass and you know where you're going and you know how long for, you want to start thinking about what you're going to pack. The major question for an Interrail trip for most travellers is, do I take a suitcase or a backpack? Personally, we took a suitcase. We found it fine. The only issue was on the cobble streets of Europe. It was a bit clunky and our wheels are now pretty wrecked, but we've had the case for a few years. We obviously saw a lot of people with backpacks too. It just depends on what you'd prefer, honestly. I don't think there's a major difference. Most trains have storage areas at the start or the end of each carriage, and then overhead. The cases just fitted in nicely there. Sometimes the backpacks could fit on top, but usually it's for the smaller cases. Both suitcases and backpacks have pros and cons. It just depends on your preference for travel, what you're used to. I've just always been used to suitcase, and we actually just shared 1 suitcase, so we weren't lugging around 2 big suitcases. We just had 1 big suitcase between us, and we found that was more than enough. We did also have a backpack full of our camera gear, and then just like a travel everyday backpack, and we also had a small carry-on with just our laptops in, etc. That was enough for us. I think any more than that would have been too much. Either way, I definitely recommend some packing cubes. I think they're really great, especially for the small items like t-shirts or underwears and socks, just to have them in a section in your bag really helps. If you have a big backpack and you're trying to rummage around, trying to find your clothes, knowing it's in that little packing cube somewhere really helps, and it saves a lot of time. If you do take a suitcase, so it's good to know most of the stations do have lifts. There were some where it didn't, and we just had to carry the suitcase up, which was a bit of a pain, and sometimes we helped some people when we saw them too struggling, but there was also some people with heavy backpacks. So it just depends. If you know that you're going to a city and your accommodations are far away and you have a backpack, that's probably fine. Like I said, that is your choice. Maybe ask some other people that you know for advice, or take reference from some of your past trips and what you prefer. To activate the pass, you can do that online. You can log in on the Interrail website, and then you'll see that your pass appears, and also download the Interrail app. Then you can have it on your phone, your pass is there. The pass used to be just paper copies. They would mail you the pass. Nowadays it's on the app. Okay, so now let's talk about what happens once you start traveling on your Interrail trip. Something that I was a bit confused about at first was, how do people check that we have a pass? Like, what do they do? And it's quite simple. The train conductors come around, they ask to see your app, they scan the QR code, and then some of them will ask to see your passport just to check your ID, and then they just go on their way. So to get the QR code, what you do on the app is you add a travel day. So you actually find the train trip that you want to take. Say I want to go from Barcelona to Madrid. You add it in, choose your time, and then you add it onto your pass. So then that takes a travel day, and then you press activate, and that will pop up with a QR code, and that is what the conductor will scan. Well, from this you're probably thinking, well, some of these trains want me to reserve seats, and yes, some places do make you reserve seats. It depends on the country. Not everywhere in Europe does, but some, for example, I think Spain, Italy, France at least, they'll make you pay to reserve a train seat. Personally, I didn't really agree with this. I thought if you bought an Interrail pass, you should be able to travel for free everywhere, but each country has their own rules. To book your reservation, you can do it in a station or you can do it online. I couldn't find how to do it on the app, which was quite frustrating, because that would have been so much easier if I could have just done it in the app, because everything was there. I had to go onto the browser, I had to go onto my laptop, log into my Interrail page, and then I had to add the train journey, and I had to pay for the seats there. I would then get an email, and that's where my train tickets would be. But you also had to add that trip into your pass so that travel day also appears. It's a little confusing at first. I think they could make the app and the whole process a little bit smoother by being able to reserve the seats in the app. If anyone has figured that out, let me know. But we couldn't find out where to book the seat reservations in the app. Next up, we're going to talk about accommodation. Now, obviously Europe is a major travel destination, so there is loads of accommodation to choose from. A lot of people on this trip will go and stay in hostels, and obviously there is just multiple hostels to stay in the city. It's a great way if you're solo traveler to meet people, or if you're on more of a budget. We stayed in a couple of hostels, but the majority of the time we stayed in hotels or a few Airbnbs actually. However, we did find that booking.com was a little bit cheaper than Airbnb in the majority of Europe. We did find Budapest was cheaper for Airbnb than hotels, so definitely have a little look around, see where the best prices are and go from there. We didn't stay in any dorms in hostels, but to be honest, we did look at private rooms and they were the same price as hostels. The dorms were cheaper, but honestly some of the prices for dorms these days, and just for a bed in a dorm, are just extortionate. I'm not sure if that's just rising costs and we've not been staying in hostels much over the past few years, or it's just because of the pandemic, but I was so short, so we just thought, hey, for those prices we may as well pay a little bit more and just go and stay in a hotel room. Obviously there'll be so many gap year people and backpackers staying in hostels, so I'm sure there's a lot of advice out there about where to stay. If you're looking for a good website, try and find some hostels and try hostelworld.com. And if you're traveling in summer, make sure you book in advance. I really need to take my own advice because we just did not book much in advance on this trip. We were so spontaneous. We went at the end of summer, but it was still in August, so we travelled between August and September, and we did struggle and we paid some really stupid prices that we really shouldn't have done it. But we had to change our route early on, so then we didn't book much in advance. We would end up booking maybe 1 to 1.5 weeks in advance. Even though we did find accommodation, there was still availability. It was pricier and obviously a lot more limited. So guys, please, if you're going to travel in summer season, book in advance and you probably get a lot better deals than we did. However, if you are traveling for say 2 to 3 months, I do think it is good to have some time where you can be spontaneous, but maybe have some flexibility, because we did find that we'd go some places and we would like it a lot more than we thought we'd want to, so we would wish that we could have stayed. Or we went to some cities and we thought it's not as great as we were expecting, so we could have had one less extra night. So that is something to keep in mind. Maybe you just want to book the first half, and then towards that first half start booking in the second half when you know more. If you do use booking.com, it is really great because they do have a lot of free cancellation up to the last few days. That is really handy. I didn't use that too much, but in the past I have done that when I've had a longer trip. I would book in advance, but if we did want to change our route or change our booking, we could, because free cancellation options, so that is definitely a big plus for booking.com. I just want to add in as well, if you are going to all these new cities and places and you want to learn a bit about the place, then I'd really recommend walking tours. We actually end up doing lots of walking tours because there's so many free ones. They're really great because you just leave a tip at the end. Usually it depends on when you go. They would tell you roughly how much they would expect, but it's between like $10 to $20 per person is what they'd usually expect, depending on how good that you think they were. We went on so many walking tours like London, Budapest, Vienna, and they were all fantastic, so we learned so much about the place. It gave us a really good idea of the city, and we met people. You simply need to search free walking tours online in the city that you're in. You'll see so many, and then just tip them some money. Some of them did have card machines, but honestly, cash is still best. And from that, we'll talk money. Most of the time, you can use your cards everywhere. However, it is always great to have some cash on you. There are still some places around Europe that you need to have cash for. So many of the toilets require cash for entry, so you'd have to put in like a few euros, like €1 to enter just to go for a quick toilet, which was so frustrating. But because of that and because of other reasons like the tipping for the walking tours and some of the cafes and restaurants, especially in Germany, we found were still accepting cash only. So please take that tip and always have some cash on you. Now I'm going to tell you a little bit about the trains, what to expect on the train trips, what they look, how comfortable are they, etc. Obviously all the trains are slightly different, depends on the country and the company of the trains, but overall they're pretty generic. Most of the trains have toilets. If you're on a trip, then obviously that's not something to worry about. All of them will have a storage space at either end of the carriage and then on top. Some had Wi-Fi, but honestly overall it wasn't great, and many of them we just didn't expect Wi-Fi, and if we had it, it was a bonus, but unless we're in like a major city in one of the newer trains, we just didn't expect it. Most of them have the little laptop trays so we could work on our laptops. Some would have food or food carts. It would probably be more the high-speed trains or the long-distance trains. Say the high-speed trains in France, for example, would have like little cafe areas. Some would come around with some like snack. Not too often though. Maybe if you had a little walk around the train, you might be able to find a food area. We would always take our own food just in case though. The majority of the train stations are very central within the major cities, which is really great. So depending on where you're going to stay, you could either walk there, or the train stations are usually located very close to the public transport. Probably I would say 80 to 90% of the time we would get off the train, go to the metro station and continue on to our accommodation. And just some general tips for travelling on the trains, because the Wi-Fi is a little bit dodgy, just download some podcasts. Take a pack of cards. We forgot ours. We were going to take a pack of cards and Uno, and we forgot, and we wish we did. If you have a laptop, it's fine because most of them would have a charging point, which is really good, and most would have like a USB so you could charge your phone too, which was obviously so handy. But some form of entertainment will go a long way. Now I said in the beginning that you can also use your Interrail pass down in the Greek islands, but I want to expand on that. You can actually use your Interrail trip for a lot of ferries around Europe. There's different companies around Europe. There's ferry lines for Spain, for Italy and the Greek islands, and your Interrail pass will allow you to get a discount. For example, we travelled overnight from Athens to Kos Island. It was a 12-hour overnight ferry, and we got 30% off a cabin with our Interrail pass. So we still had to pay, but because we had the Interrail pass, we saved a nice chunk of money, which was a great bonus for us. However, if you're going to be doing a trip that is just majority the Greek islands, or you're going to do that on top of a train travel trip around mainland Europe, you can purchase a Greek ferry hopper pass. That means you can travel around the ferries that go around the Greek islands for free with your pass that you've prepaid, but you don't have to reserve obviously any seats with anything with this, and you can use your pass to go around the ferries. That is a very popular one. Now I'm going to give you some recommendations for places to visit in Europe if you haven't been before, or if you're just really struggling to figure out where to go. Some of our favourite cities in Europe would be Paris, Amsterdam, Budapest. It was our first time in Budapest on this Interrail trip, and it absolutely blew us away. It was amazing. We highly recommend it. There's so much to do there. We just loved it. Vienna is a beautiful city. Barcelona is so much fun. Honestly, you're gonna have the time of your life. There's so many destinations to visit. Like, my list is getting longer and longer, recommendations. But if you've never been to any of Europe before, I think definitely try and tick off London, Paris, Amsterdam, Budapest, Barcelona, and then maybe throw in somewhere in Italy too, like Rome. Okay guys, so now I've gone over all the areas of Interrail. I'll do a quick little overview for you. So Interrail, Eurail, it's the same thing. It depends on your citizenship. You have to choose what type of pass you like. You can see them all on the website. Depends on your age, length of trip, and how many travel days you'd like. You'll have a period of time to choose when to activate your trip, so as soon as you buy it, it doesn't start, but you can start it in the future. Use the website to see what route you'd like to take, or you can even design your own. Download the Interrail app so you can have your pass on the phone, and then you'll use that so the conductors can scan the QR code when you're on the train. A travel day lasts for a whole 24 hours, so you can travel on multiple trains throughout the whole day. You can get discounts on ferries around Europe. That includes Spain, Italy, Scandinavia, Greek islands, or if you like, you can buy a ferry-only pass for hopping around the Greek islands. If you're traveling in the height of summer, book in advance. Maybe leave some room for flexibility though if you can. Take some packing cubes and decide whether a suitcase or a backpack is best for you. If you like to meet people, go to hostels or go on walking tours. And overall guys, I just want to say I hope you have the best trip ever. I hope it is everything that you want it to be. If you have any questions about Interrail, please leave them below. We are more than happy to answer anything that we might have missed. If you find this video has helped you, then give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't already, subscribe along and follow more of adventures. Thank you for watching and have the best time on your Interrail trip.